Hello and welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Midday Masterclass series. Today, we are looking at small money, big moves. We're looking at small money, big moves today. My name is Peter Okoli, and I welcome you to this edition of the Midday Masterclass series. Today, we're looking at how to make we're looking at smart ways to start building wealth, smart ways to start building wealth. And quickly, I'll just run through some of the things we'll be discussing today. A quick introduction. I'll be looking at three parts in this discussion today. First of all, is how small money can make big moves. Small money making big moves. The next one, we'll be looking at some practical steps to actually begin to use your small money to make big moves. And finally, we'll be looking at some common questions that people ask around money and making small money do big things. Jumping in, we'll look at, we'll look at quickly the purpose of money, just so we're all in the same understanding as regards money. The first thing is that money is a tool, it's not a goal. Money is a tool, it's not a goal. If you think about it if you think about it closely, everything that you do with money is to achieve a goal. You don't get money for the purpose of gathering money. You don't sleep in money, you don't swim in money. You use money to build a house, you use money to get a pool. So it's for a goal. So the next thing is that money is for exchange. That's the next purpose of money, that if we can agree on this, it will help us to just be on the same um, frame of reference. So money is for exchange. You use money to exchange for value. Use money to get stuff. So it's not for the purpose of gathering money. And then money is for freedom. For a lot of individuals, you hear the term the rat race, escaping the rat race, and it depicts a form of bondage, a form of hold, and money can liberate one from that. So money is for freedom. And finally, money is for legacy. Whatever you do with money, understand that money is not just for you to receive and spend. There's a very beautiful analogy that we use all the time. We came into this world with nothing, we would leave with nothing. But of course, we can leave something behind. And money is one of those things. Money, systems to make money. These are the kinds of things that we can leave behind for the next generation. So that's the purpose of money. The very next thing we're going to look at is the mindset shift that helps individuals to turn small money and help us to use small money to make big big moves. What kind of mindset shift do we need? The first wealth mindset that we need to get is that wealth is about having assets producing income producing assets, the assets that produce income. I'll explain what assets are, but just note this, that wealth is about having assets that produce income. So whatever you are getting, whatever you're gathering, ensure that it's assets that can produce income. The very next thing is understand cash accumulation versus cash flow. Cash accumulation versus cash flow. Now, certain individuals, they look at their bank account and it feels so much joy knowing that, oh, I'm saving, I'm saving, I'm saving. But the really wealthy people understand that it's not about accumulating cash, because you see it, whether you like it or not, inflation meets with whatever money you have kept in a savings, whatever money you have accumulated. Yes, you should put monies together because you use money to make money, and I will explain that as we go along. That you use your money to work for you. But the really wealthy people have moved beyond that stage where they're accumulating cash, and they understand the importance of cash flow. The next thing, and this is in relation to what the really wealthy people use with money that they have accumulated. The wealthy, they make their money work for them. So if you want to gather, if you want to become wealthy, if you want to begin to use small money to achieve big things, to do great things, you need to understand these three things. Wealth is about having assets that produce income. The second thing is that you should you should prioritize cash flow to cash accumulation. And you can do this by understanding what the wealthy people do. They make money work for them. Going forward, there are some key money concepts that would totally help us to really make the most of small money. The first one is assets. And I mentioned it that that's one of the things, that one of the mindset shifts that the wealthy people have. They have income producing assets. So what are assets? Assets are anything that puts money in your pocket. So think of asset as whatever it is that adds money to your pocket. So it could be rental income, it could be royalties from books, royalties from your music, royalties from your content creation. It could be dividends from shares, it could be business equity. All of these put money back into your pocket. So we call these assets. On the other side of assets is something called liabilities. Now, if you look at assets as something that puts money in your pockets, and we're saying liabilities is the other side of asset, then it makes sense to say that liabilities are anything that takes money from your pockets. So your debts, your bills, your loans. Interestingly, your house could be a liability if all it's doing is taking from you. Your car could be a liability if all it's doing is taking from you. Understand these key things. Assets put money in your pocket. Liabilities take money from your pocket. And the wealthy people have income producing assets. Let's look at a few graphs that helps you to that will help us to understand this a little better. Now, look at this cash flow. I remember I said that making small money do big things involves something called cash flow, not cash accumulation, but cash flow. Now, this is a typical example of the way the poor use up their cash. This is a typical example of the way the poor use up their cash. So they've got a job. A lot of their income comes from their job. Look at the top quadrant here is cash inflow. The bottom quadrant is cash outflow. This is cash flow in and out. For most poor people, they've got jobs. That's where the majority of their inflow comes from, the job. Income producing assets, they may or may not have these. Most of the time, they don't have income producing assets, and that's why this box is really small. Debts, they've got some debts, but the poor, they avoid debt as much as possible. So they have small debts, but lots of bills. So you see, a poor person has a job, just over broke. Jobs. And sometimes they get very zealous and then they get a second job. But you see, this doesn't prevent them from having debts from credit cards, debts from loans, because they've got lots of bills to pay. If you live in the UK, you discover that you have a job, you have a second job, but this just gives you enough to pay off your utility bills, your phone bills, your rent, your council tax, pay for food, pay for gas, pay off your credit card, and some other loans that you've gotten from paying off some of these bills. And this keeps the poor trapped in a circle of being poor. Work more shifts just to be able to pay off more debt, just to be able to pay off more loans. And the more jobs you do, the more the task. They have some of their income from jobs. And then they have some income from income producing assets. Probably selling on Facebook, selling on Vinted, selling on eBay. But they've got some income producing assets. Interestingly, some of these income producing assets were bought using the money from the job, and now they are selling on Facebook, selling on Vinted, selling on eBay to produce some income. But they still have some debts, and you see that the debts are almost the same size with the bill. So yes, middle class, they have a job, they have a second job, then they have some, because the middle class, they're able to explore a little more, and then they've got credit card, they've got loans, they're paying back for the car that they got on finance, they've got a mortgage, because yeah, they're in the middle class, so they have a mortgage, but they have lots of debts to pay. They also have bills to pay. So you've got utility bills, you've got phone bills, you've got the council tax, food bills, you've got gas bills. These are some of the bills that the middle class have. And this is why they are middle class, because there's just that balance. They've got that balance because they've got a second job that pays more, and they've got mortgage. Feels like everything is going fine. But you see, the really wealthy people do things differently. Most of the income from the really wealthy people come from the real estates, royalty from books, digital products, rental properties, high yield investments. The income comes from the income producing assets. Most of the incomes come from the income producing assets. And most of that is what differentiates the wealthy from the middle class. Income producing assets. They've got a job, but that's not where most of the income comes from. And the wealthy people also do something. They do something a little different from those that are in the middle class or are the poor. They've got some loan. They are not worried about getting loan. But they also have bills, but these bills are not paid in their name. So you don't see bills as part of the cash flow of the wealthy, because they've got some digital product that is paying their bills. They've got some rental income that is paying their bills. I met a man not too long ago who was driving a Ferrari here in the UK, and he explained that he wasn't even paying for that car with money from his pockets. He had the rental income from one of his real estate that he was just directing to pay off the finance of that car. And at the end of the day, what he's doing with that car is he has put that car in a luxury car business where people actually pay to use that car. So he's using income from one income producing asset to pay off another luxury, which he has another asset which he has now converted, another investment which he has now converted to an income producing asset. He's using the Ferrari once in a while, goes for presentation, he uses that, but he has also put that car into a car hire system where people actually rent that car for events and they pay him for that. So it's an income producing asset as well. And that's the mindset of the wealthy. The middle class will probably buy that car and then be paying finance on the car, whereas the wealthy do things differently. They put their money, they receive their money from income producing assets. Very, very important, that leg, income producing assets. That said, what is a summary of the mindset of the really wealthy? The first thing is this: the wealthy people, they look at generational wealth. How can I ensure that money keeps coming? And that's why there's a lot of attention to income producing assets. So your income producing asset could be books you've written, it could be the skills you've gathered, so you're a consultant, it could be the trainings that you can actually give. So you could go on YouTube, give trainings, you could give trainings to people that want to learn, courses that you are very comfortable with. Those are income producing assets. Your skills could also be income producing assets. Digital products could be income producing assets. And these are things that the wealthy know and use a lot. The next one is delayed gratification. If you see a truly wealthy person, they don't they don't they don't look flashy as such. because they don't have anything to prove. They know where they are going with their income plan. And so they delay gratification. Yes, iPhone 17 is out, but do I really need it? Do I need to buy it? And if a wealthy person is picking up something like that, they've got an income producing asset that is paying it off. Either they are getting that phone, and because of the books that they've sold, because of their personality, because of their content as influencers, iPhone is giving it to them to do a review on that iPhone 17, and now they have an iPhone 17, but it's not like I didn't have to take the money out of my pocket. That is where the rich and the middle class and poor are different in the way they spend. Understand delayed gratification. And finally, understand that money is a seed. You use money, when you've gotten it, it has to flow. It has to create an income. It has to work. Either by putting it in high yield investment, either by putting it into a business. But the wealthy people understand that money is a seed. You don't eat your seed, you plant it and it grows. Moving on, the second part of this discussion, we're looking at some practical ways to actually create wealth. I've already started to talk about it, but understand this, that some of the steps to make to do some big moves with your small money is start with one small income producing asset. So look at yourself, look at your skill set, look at your what you have within your disposal, and begin to ask questions. How can I begin to generate income with some of the things I have? It could be the fact that you are very good at speaking. Speaking could become an income producing asset for you, because you can now begin to sell your services as a speaker, sell your services as an MC, host events, and you begin to make an income from your skills. You could be very knowledgeable in programming. You could be very knowledgeable in different softwares. Sell your skills. Write a book. These become income producing assets for you. This is one very practical way to begin to generate an income from your asset. It could be the fact that you cook very well. I met a lady recently who does very lovely small chops. And then the small chops, which she does in her house, everyone says is very lovely, has become an income producing asset for her, because now she goes around, people call her to deliver small chops, and she's now selling small chops, and that has become an income producing asset. My wife bakes very lovely cakes. And then when people have a bite of those cakes, the next thing they say is, whoa, this is very lovely. And already that has become an income producing asset, because people are asking to buy cakes for their events, and that's already an income producing asset. So, what do you have that can become an income producing asset? Could it be a room in the 3 bedroom house that you currently rent? You currently rent a 3 bedroom house. You need just one for yourself, one for your kids, and the third room could become an income producing asset for you. Check regulations around your area, but that could be an income producing asset for you. It could be the fact that you um you have contacts, and because you have contacts, someone can give you a job, and then you can manage having all the contacts ready for the job. That could be an income producing asset for you. The very next thing is to optimize and scale. Recently, not long ago, I actually started a rental business, because I looked around my network and I discovered that we got into a stage where we're throwing parties here and there. We have a need for chairs, tables, canopies, shaving dishes, coolers, and all of that. And so what I did was invested some money to get all those things, and a rental business was born. The first set of people that got in touch with me were people within my immediate network, and that started it. To optimize and scale, because I started getting calls from other parts of the country. To optimize and scale, I now started to talk to my contacts in other parts of the country. How about I bring a franchise of my business to your area, so that if someone calls me from Manchester, for instance, and says, I would like to rent canopies, I'd like to rent chairs, I'd like to rent tables, I don't have to come from where I am in Birmingham down to Manchester, but I could call my contacts in Manchester and say, good, we've got all these things there. I've got a gig, and you can go there. That is an example of how to optimize and scale. One example I used for myself. You could look at your training business and say to yourself, how do I optimize and scale? It might mean having a website, recording your training, and begin to put your training out there for people to actually um, subscribe to and listen to your training videos again and again. And this is because you can't continue to do trainings 24/7 all the time. Or you can package your training and put it there for people to actually buy. That's one way to optimize and scale. You could sell your recipe. You could begin to have franchise. That is how you can optimize and scale. So begin to ask those questions and finally plan for the next generation. One way you can plan for the next generation is understand this. You're not going to live forever. And the fact that you're not going to live forever, you're going to have to leave something behind. So what do you leave behind? Leave behind a system, not just money. Leave behind a system that is working. Your system could be the books you've written. Your system could be the business you've built. Leave behind a system. Have a life insurance. The only guaranteed thing in this life is that you will die. Sometimes we will all die, and there's this very very strong quote I remind myself a lot. My time will come, my time will go. Your time will come, your time will go, but the future, the history of our time will never ever pass. One of those things you can do to prepare for when your time passes is have a life insurance. Making plans for the next generation. Leave a system, have a life insurance, have a system, a business system that works, and they will be grateful for that. Finally, what are some questions that comes up again and again? And I'll go through this quickly. And like I said, if you have like I usually say, if you have questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. I will come to your question. But one of those questions that comes is, isn't this for the rich people only? Trust me, wealth wealth creation is not for the rich only. You can start from zero and then really, really grow. Just remember these key things. Money is a tool. So work for money. Don't let it go until it works for you. How do you not let money go? When you work for money, so start by getting skills, because the more you learn, the more you earn. When you have the right skills, you can now earn more money. Now, when you earn more money, the very next thing to do is now look at ways to convert your money to income producing assets. And by income producing assets, we've already discussed a few in this call. Income producing assets. When you now have income producing assets, the third thing to do is find protection for your assets. You can have protection for your assets in the sense that you can have health insurance, you can have life insurance, you can have those protection for your assets so that it can pass on from you to the next generation. Delayed gratification is one thing that will help you to take your money and not eat it all. Remember, money is a seed. You plant it, let it grow. And one way to plant money is by converting money into income producing assets. The next question is, what if my asset fails? Now, if you don't try, you've already failed. If you try, you might fail. If you do something, I don't like using the word try. If you do something, you might fail. If you do not do something, you have already failed. The worst that can happen if you try to create income producing assets is that it doesn't work. So you started a business, but it failed. You learn from it. Because no matter how bitter it gets, it makes you better. Someone who never tries never gets it, never wins. But if you try, if you work hard, if you do something, you have a chance of actually winning. The next question I get a lot is, let's go back to that. The next question I get a lot is, how long before my income begins to replace my salary? It's dependent. There is no hard and fast rule. I can't say in the next 1 month, in the next 2 months. Wealth creation takes time. So put in the work and also remember that when you plant a seed in the soil, it requires time to germinate, it requires time to grow. So take your time and let your income grow. And the very next thing is this: why life insurance? Yes, I mentioned life insurance. And why life insurance? The very simple answer, the very short answer is life ends. But just because life ends doesn't mean you shouldn't give something to those after you. If you love, you give. And one of the things you can give is allow those people that come after you to actually get a benefit from the fact that you knew you were going to pass. And because you knew, you had a preparation for them. Not that you pass and they are worried about, how do I bury him? How do I take care of this? How do I take care of that? Your life insurance covers all of that. You've left the house good, you leave a life insurance as well. And that's why it's very important. It's protection for your income. It's protection for your income. If not, everything you worked for might be used to just take care of the fact that you didn't leave a life insurance. Everything you worked for, the money will now be used to take care of your funeral and all of that. So it doesn't really make sense. So have a life insurance. Just don't be selfish. And what small actions can I take right now? What small actions can you take right now? One of the smallest actions you can take right now is to really have an assessment. Think about it. What income producing asset can I create today? Can I create something with my skill? Can I create something with the things in my house? You can look at the children's clothes, and then that can become income producing asset for you. You can begin to sell on Vinted, sell on Facebook. That becomes an income producing asset for you. You can look around your house and ask yourself, what are the things I can create? I can actually use AI to create a painting, put it on an app like Temu, create something new, sell it, put it on Printivo, and then you can print something and begin to sell artwork just by creating it from AI. Those are income producing assets that you can start creating now. So, in conclusion, here are a few things we can do quickly. Understand that money is to multiply value. It funds your purpose in life, and it helps you to perpetuate your impact to the world. It's not just for you. It's not meant to sit idle. It's meant to work, grow, and yes, money is meant to outlive you. And finally, the third thing here is start small, acquire money. How do you acquire money? The more you learn, the more you earn. Earn some money, protect it, grow your money by having some income producing assets, and then prepare to pass it on to the next generation. Start small, acquire money, protect it, grow it like a seed will be planted in the floor. You grow it, nourish it, flourish, let it flourish, and then pass it on to the next generation. A good man leaves an inheritance for his children and his children's children. Thank you all so very much. We have come to the end of the conversation today. Thank you very much for being a part of the discussion today. I do this every Tuesday. Please like, subscribe. It helps us to have more reach with this conversation. Like, subscribe. If you haven't done that, please do that now. Like, subscribe. Leave a comment. I'd like to know where you are watching from. Leave a comment. I'd like to know where you're watching from. If there's any part of this conversation that has touched you in a way, please leave a comment. If you have a question, drop it in the comment box. Thank you for making our time to be part of this conversation. And I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.